I'm going to do my best to communicate with you with what I have. People are very receptive to that, and they appreciate the fact that you took the time to learn anything.
What is going on, L&M family? Back again, and this is kind of like a refresh, a reboot, because the last time I had an amazing conversation with our guest, it didn't process. There was some funky, what do you call it, technical glitch, which is like the perfect excuse for me to have another conversation with her. And like, it's an extra special treat because as long as I've known her, she has spoken energy and excitement into my life. She just set like a really high target for me to aspire to, and I ain't afraid. I'm going to take it on. She's an intentional world changer. Bottom line, she changes the world of the people that she serves through her business and the people that she comes into contact with, because I know I'm experiencing it now. Her name is Miss Heather Jones, and she's like the big boss of Archer Estimation and Consulting. When I was kind of doing the little bit of research that I do, it was clear, or I wasn't surprised to find that part of the reason the whole business started was because she wants to help combat the stress and burnout that estimators experience, which she knows firsthand. And I think we'll get some inside details on it about what it was that motivated her to like start the business. I know that she wants to improve mental health and physical health for folks, but I also know that somebody very close to her in her life is an estimator. So maybe her insight came from that. And before we go any further, if this is your first time here, this is the Learnings and Missteps podcast, where real people just like you are sharing their gifts and talents to leave this world better than they found it. I'm Jesse, your selfish servant, and we about to get to know Miss Heather Jones. Miss Heather, how are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, having fun, feeling a little spent, but still, like first world problems. It ain't that bad.
Amen to that. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. Well, one, thank you for coming back on after we spent that whole hour plus the last time together and having to do the redo. And two, I know you're feeling a little under the weather as well.
A bit.
So last time what was about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, last time we talked?
I think so, yeah. I think it's been 3-4 weeks.
Okay. And are you in the same country today that you were 3 or 4 weeks ago? Yes. Okay. Where exactly is that? I know you said the Pacific.
We are in Lima, Peru.
Lima, Peru. Got it. Why are you in Lima, Peru?
Why not? Like the longer answer to that is we spent some time in Cusco and we knew we wanted to see other parts of Peru, and Lima just was a great place to get some time by the ocean because it's on the Pacific coast and I was craving the ocean. There is an incredible food scene here. The restaurants are amazing. And you can get tons of really good produce and just food to even cook at home. And we said, there's not like a ton of touristy things to do in Lima, but it'll be a great place to just hang out for a few weeks, relax, and appreciate the ocean.
Yeah. And so I know folks out there are probably thinking like, man, what an amazing vacation. But this isn't a vacation. This is like a lifestyle deal for you.
Yeah, we slow travel.
Yes. And so you're making the next jump. Where are you headed next? Or what's next on the plan?
So I think the next stop on the plan is actually going to be a new continent. We already had some plans to meet up with friends in the fall of this year in Europe. And so we're going to go take a vacation, hang out with some friends, and then not 100% certain where we're going from there.
Ooh, okay, so you just got the next step outlined, going to Europe, going to hang out, and then when you get there, you'll decide where the next stop is.
Yeah, we started out with like a 4-year itinerary, and 6 months in, we realized we're not even going to come close to sticking to it. We'd already made 2 changes by then because we would either find out about a new place that someone said, oh, you should really check this out, or we would say, oh, well, there's this thing going on in this city or country that we really want to experience. So let's go there next. And so we just kind of threw the itinerary out the window a little bit. And now it's just a wish list.
Oh, so it's just a list. We might go here, we might go there, but it sounds like it leaves a lot of room for like adventure and exploration to just say, okay, well, let's go check that one out.
That's exactly it.
Oh my, okay. So I know you started Archer Estimation and Consulting. Did you start that business so that you can bounce around all over the globe?
Did we start it for that reason? No. Is that a huge perk? Yes.
Okay. So I know a little bit of the history, which you know, because I got to interview too long ago. But business idea came from a real pain that you got to observe or see firsthand, and opportunities to like help other people. There was a work thing that he was going through, and it just kind of like, well, why don't we just do this? And then you started doing that. And then if we were to map it out, how long was it between starting the business and then becoming Nomads?
We officially started the business in October of 23, but we didn't actually begin, like, be active in it until December of 23. So December of 23, and we left on our nomad journey the first week of September of 2024.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it was a year from actually like starting the business. So what were the signals? What were the signs that y'all saw that you responded to that said, hey, let's do this digital nomad thing?
So we both always have wanted to live abroad. And there were a couple of times in the past that we made attempts at perhaps getting jobs overseas or something like that, but life and responsibilities just never quite let it happen. And so once we were free of all those responsibilities, the last one was our last dog who we adored. We adored all of them, but he was the last one we had. He died in September of 23. And we started the business shortly thereafter. And we just kind of looked at each other and said, wait a minute, there's nothing stopping us now. Like, we're location independent. We have our own business. We can actually do this. And so we took some time to get the business up and running properly and make sure everything was going to go well. And we had our feet under us. And we said, okay, let's start planning. And then we sold all our stuff and left.
I love that. Just the current. Now I know a little bit more about you, which it's like totally makes sense. I'm sure your family is like, yeah, Heather's always been kind of that way. But I think it's amazing because for me, like the contrast is estimating, right? Which is a very logical data, low risk, eliminate risk, identify risk. And so like that kind of mindset doesn't necessarily, in my brain, doesn't jive with like, hell yeah, let's go travel the world and like just do this thing. And so y'all have been bouncing around for a while. What have you learned about yourself as a result of doing this traveling around? I think you've focused on South America lately, and sounds like you're headed beyond that.
Ooh, that's a great question. A whole lot. So you talk about logic and avoiding risk and identifying risk in the estimating field. I do a lot of that in my own life. I'm pretty risk averse and always have been. So there was a lot of analysis before we kind of jumped off this ledge. So as someone who's very type A, who's logical, who does like a cost benefit analysis and a risk analysis on everything I do, number one, I've learned I have to go with the flow a little more. I'd already like started to learn that through, the previous years of just what happened in life, but this has really reinforced it. I need to let go of control. I cannot control everything. And I really like discomfort.
And you didn't think you liked it before?
I felt like I would, but I wasn't sure. Because, you go somewhere where they speak a different language. And yes, we spoke a little bit of Spanish and we're getting a whole lot better. But it's still, you're in a situation where you cannot effectively communicate everything you want to communicate. And I've always been a pretty good communicator. So I knew that was going to be a huge challenge. And it's actually been great because for the most part, we've been able to get across everything that we really needed to get across. We've been able to do all the things that we need to do, and we continue to learn more of the language. And so that's been really interesting. I knew I wanted to experience different cultures. I wanted to meet people kind of where they live and people who are different and who've maybe never been to the US or never really traveled and all they know is their home, and learn about them and their lives and what their country is like. And of course, within each country, every region is different. And so, like,
Yeah.
for example, Cusco, we learned about the Quechua language and how that sort of integrates with their history and how it influences the Spanish they speak and different things like that. So I knew I would be comfortable with that, but I wasn't sure how I would do with the inability to communicate as effectively as I'm used to. But that's helping me learn to go with the flow and, as they say, be more tranquilo because I'm a little tightly wound and it wouldn't hurt me to be less so.
Oh, Heather. Yeah, yeah. I love that. It's interesting because you've said to me that you're a recovering perfectionist. And I get it, right? Like saying, which doesn't align with like, yeah, let's go travel the world. And we had an itinerary and now we don't. We're just kind of going to figure it out. That's not a judgment. I think what's exciting about that is it's a signal that you're expanding your comfort
Mhm.
zone, right? Like staying on the edge of it. And then I mean, that's the thing, right? Is when people stay on the edge of their comfort zone, we find out that it's not as horrible as we thought. And more importantly, that we can handle it.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, what else could I handle? What else could I do? What else could I learn? I love that you talk about like you're in a country where the first language is Spanish or some variation of it. Your first language is English, but you're still able to communicate. And the reason that stands out to me is because, in construction, I hear it a bunch how, well, it's just, we can't communicate with the guys because they don't speak English very well. I'm like, we could absolutely, I know
Mhm.
I can. Now I've learned a lot of Spanish, but like you can, like it's easy to dismiss it and say, well, it's because of them. And in this case, you're them, right? You're the ones that aren't speaking the native language, but you're figuring it
Yes.
out. And so for, we'll say for those wild, adventurous L&M family members, what pointers do you have around like if they're going to go to a country where they don't speak their language and maybe gallivant around the globe for a year or two? What pointers do you have for them? And before we go any further, we're going to do the L&M family member shout out. And this one goes to my brother, Lance Furuyama, my brother from LinkedIn. He sent this note. He says, I was fortunate enough to join the second session of the time management workshop, and it changed the way that I look at my calendar. For those of you that know me, it looks like I'm a master of organization and planning. What I didn't realize is that I wasn't allowing any time in my calendar for myself or the things that I want to do. I promise you that it is worth your time and attention. And Mr. Lance is talking about the Time Mastery Workshop, which has now been rebranded, and it is the Self First Time Mastery Framework. Super, super fancy. The link will be down there in the show notes. And for everybody else, you already know, I love the attention. I love the comments. I love the shares, the stars, all of the things. It gives me an opportunity to shout you out in a future podcast episode.
Be humble.
Ooh, humble. Why humble?
Because one of the first phrases that we learned was, I'm sorry, I only speak a little Spanish. Now that phrase has changed to, I'm sorry, our Spanish is limited. And so we always start our interactions with that. Like we immediately say, we're sorry, we don't speak your language. Can you help us? And I think that goes a long way. And every place I've ever been, I've been to several countries now where it was either Spanish, German, Portuguese. I always learn a few words. Hello, thank you, please, have a nice day. Where's the bathroom? You know,
Yeah.
basics. But I
Yeah.
learned something and I always start with that. And I've found that as long as you start with the attitude of, I'm the person who doesn't speak the language, I'm coming into another country and I don't expect you to speak my language. I'm going to do my best to communicate with you with what I have. People are very receptive to that and they appreciate the fact that you took the time to learn anything. And so, like, especially if you're just vacationing or you're there for a short time, just learn enough to show respect.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Like, it's just that, be humble, show some respect, make a damn effort to learn their language and just own it. I can go off and complain about the situation here in the States, right out on the job site but I'm not gonna. We're gonna focus on you. So now I know that the main, I'll say, motivation behind your business is to like eliminate or minimize the stress and burnout that estimators are going through. And estimators out there, I really can't think of an estimator that I know that isn't wound tight and like on the edge because there's just a lot of stress and pressure. I don't understand it because I never done that work. The only thing that I can really relate to them is how, what I think is like a superpower is the way that they bounce back from rejection. Because, right, like what's a good hit rate? I have no idea, but I know a lot of the estimates that they produce don't win. And so, like, for people like me, that would be extremely difficult. And then there's all kinds of other pressures. And so, how much has the traveling helped with the stress of estimating? Because that's still a major function of y'all's business. Yeah.
It is. And I would say it's a bit of a combination between the travel and being in control of the number of hours we work and the types of projects we choose. The
Okay.
traveling is actually really good because, especially for Jake, when he's had a day where he's just in an estimate all day long, it's a complicated one. You know, he's into numbers up to his ears and problems with drawings and just different things. When the workday is over, it's like, okay, well, let's go walk along the Malecon by the Pacific Ocean. Let's go take a walk. You know, you get to get out, you
Mm.
see things you wouldn't necessarily normally see. It's not, I don't want to say the same boring routine of being at home, but I think many people do get into a routine. And especially if you work
Yeah.
from home, people don't always leave the house and they don't always put their phone or their computer away.
Oh, I
And
know.
so they end up working, you know, oh, I'll get some dinner. And then they'll sit there. And after dinner, they sit on the sofa and they work. And so
Yep.
having things to see that are not normal for us, and, you know, we're in places a limited time. So we only have so much time to see the place where we are. Like, we have the option to sit on our duffs and not go out and see things, but that's not why we're doing this. So it's motivation to leave work at work and get out and shift your mind to something different and give your brain a break.
Yeah. Good. Good. And so I know Jake is like, he does the estimating, right? Like that's the service that y'all provide, which I think means you do everything else.
Yeah,
Am I reading that right?
I do pretty much do everything else. I handle all the back end stuff of the business. I handle a lot of the client interactions, initial kind of client contact, that sort of thing. I also do pipe tables and help our clients with admin tasks and help them organize their filing systems. Or we even have one client who I'm fortunate that they trust me to help with hiring. And so I, you know, screen
Oh,
candidates and do initial interviews and things like that. And I also can help with building the back end of some estimating softwares, entering line items and things like that to help build the database. So the longer the business has been around, the more I'm getting into some of that work. I will not ever, I don't think, estimate. That is not, estimators are born, they're not trained.
that's I'm not gonna argue because I, it's a thing. Like it is a special skill set. Like I will say this. I love, and specifically in the plumbing and mechanical space, right? I love understanding the number of labor units based on MCAA or whatever it's based on per the quantity of the different sizes of materials and how that translates into labor. Like all of that, I absolutely love it. But I could not do that work every damn day. Like there is just, I think you're right. Like they're born like that's a different speed that no way I would lose my mind and I would get fired like day 2, maybe day 3. Cause I just know I'm getting nervous just thinking
I've
about
actually
it.
said the same thing to Jake. I've said, I'm so glad I'm not an estimator. I don't think I'd last very long because my mouth will run away with me. I've never, patience
Yeah.
is not my best virtue. I have a lot more than I used to have. And I don't want to use the word stupidity. I think that's the most common catch-all that people use. But inattention to detail, sending out sloppy work because you didn't check it, forgetting something obvious, and then, someone having to
Right.
ask for it. And we all make mistakes, but, things like that that I see happening over and over in the industry. I would be like, I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. I'd have a smart email ready to go and I'd be done.
Boom, bam, a templated email even because it happens so often, right? You see it happen all the dang time.
Yeah.
And so like this stress and burnout thing, again, I don't think I'm making too big a leap, but my guess is that you got to see it in Jake.
Oh, yeah, I sure did.
Yeah. And then you said, okay, we need to do this. You're still going to be the estimator, but you're going to do it to help other companies. And so when it comes, like when you're talking to a prospect or a potential client, like, do they recognize the stress and burnout in their estimators, or is it more just a capacity thing and they need more people to do it?
It depends on the size of the client, actually. There are some that do recognize the estimator's burnout and like the load that they're carrying. There are others who the owner's been doing the estimating and the business has grown to the point that they just don't have the bandwidth anymore, but they're not necessarily large enough to hire someone full time yet. And then there are other people who they have their estimator or their small estimating team, but when there are cycles of larger amounts of bids coming out and just heavier workloads, that they need some occasional help, but it's not enough to hire somebody else.
Got it. Okay. And so where do you think, like your personal observation, where do you think the stress and burnout comes from? Like into the individual? Is it the company? What's the mix?
I think it's the industry. I really do think it's the industry overall because we've seen the shift. If you look 10 years ago to now, probably closer to 15, but even 10 you would see, for example, the amount of time that an estimator is given to turn in an estimate when from they first get the bid package to when it's due has shrunk significantly. You see projects going out with plans that aren't even 50% and they don't want a budget, they want an estimate. And then, you've also got companies that there are now so many players and there is kind of a race to the bottom. It's like the lowest number is where everybody goes. And it's not necessarily, okay, well, who's going to do the best quality work? Who read the scope properly and included everything they need to and isn't going to change order us, et cetera, et cetera. It's more just each company has to bid more in order to win the work that they need. And so you've got estimators bidding way more jobs than they necessarily did in the past because there's more competition and it's a lot more competitive and just kind of, I don't know how to say it except race to the bottom. And it breaks my heart because I don't think everyone fully realizes that if you start out that way and you end up with someone who either doesn't do it well, didn't include the entire scope of work, change orders the heck out of you, not only does it end up costing the developer, the builder, the GC, it costs everybody in the food chain more in the end than if they had just read those bids more thoroughly and chosen the right contractor in the beginning instead of the cheapest one.
Yes. Best value over best price.
Yeah.
Right. Like I recognize that it takes discipline for the contractor to select on best value over best price. And I mean, it'll be my argument till forever that choosing on best price, I understand, like I totally understand that there's a budget and we got to stay within budget. I totally understand that. Now, I also know that there are some, we'll say, decision makers that will pick the lowest price because they know that their bonus is attached to whatever the financial performance of the project is. But what they fail to see, or rather what they ignore, is when they're solely selecting on best price, assuming that best price also isn't best value, because it could be, but it's rare, that the construction management team is going to be stressed the hell out managing these people that were ultra cheap. And there's a reason that they're cheap, right? It's almost never because they're super optimized and super efficient. It's almost always because they're operating a very basic system, meaning there's one boss that, like you said, doing the estimating and everything else, and they're hiring people as they can. And so they don't have the overhead that some of the other companies have that could provide a better service, but there's a price associated with that. And so it creates this thing, like you said, the race to the bottom. Now, you've already kind of hinted at, you help them kind of optimize some of their stuff. It's not just the estimating. You can help them get their estimating department geared up and ready to scale and expand and so forth. So what kind of strategies do you see, or maybe even offer up to them in terms of filtering out the abusive situation of working with those contractors that are just dollar penny focused?
It depends on the client. And I think that's something that is also overlooked in the industry a lot, is every business is different. Their goals are different. How they want to grow is different. The niches into which they want to grow are different. And so it's very tailored. If we have one client who's a small business, they're really just kind of getting their feet under them, they're growing at a good rate, and there's, say, a builder, for example, that they're looking at a job for, but that builder has a reputation for being difficult in different ways that don't jive well with how our client's business is going right now, or, they don't have the capacity to deal with some of those issues, then we would have a conversation with them about that and say, listen, here are some questions you need to ask. This is what the word on the street is, whatever. And just be like, make sure you go into this with your eyes wide open, and let's not just grab it because it's work. And that advice may be different for a different client, but we really do take the time to get to know our clients, get to know their business, their goals, how they run their crews and their projects, what they go after, where their challenges are and where their skills lie, where they excel, and just kind of try and take all of that into account with anything they consult us on, whether it's what estimating software would be best for them to implement, or whether they need to hire a combination estimator project manager, or if they're at a point where they actually have enough work that they need both, or just so many things. It's hard to say because it really can be so specific to each business.
I'm sure that leaving this world better than you found it doesn't happen by accident. And I want to help you spend more time making this world better for yourself and the people you care about. So I want to invite you to the next Do the Damn Thing Time Mastery Workshop, because we're going to be having some fun. We're going to be taking all those goals, those ideas, those projects, those dreams, the things that you keep putting off, because of the commitment you make to work and the commitment you make to family and the commitment you make to everybody else except for yourself. When you get those out of your head and finally come up with a plan, make the space, find the time for you to make those things real, for you to actually get the ball moving on the things that are going to give more flavor and meaning to your own personal life. Check the show notes for the link. I hope to see you there, and back to the show. Based on their goals and what their targets are, right, and so forth. So what are the pros and cons of this project manager estimator dual responsibility?
That's a great question. Jake would be able to give you more detail than I can, but what I do know is that some of the pros are, if you've got someone who estimates that job, when time comes to manage the project, they know exactly what they put in the estimate. They know what they were thinking. They know how they looked at the drawings. They know what they thought might be missing. And they're going to be able to bring all of that institutional knowledge onto the project management side of it to help things move smoothly, we hope. The advantage to having separates is, as long as you have a good pre-construction handoff protocol system, whatever you want to call it, then your estimator downloads all of that to the project management team. And the advantage to having separate is the estimator then goes back and focuses on more estimating and winning more work. And the project manager goes out and is solely focused on all of those projects and making sure that they're running on time, on budget, that everything is going well. They're managing the client relationship. So in the beginning, if you don't have too much of a workload for one person to do both, that can be a really advantageous hire for somebody because they get two jobs. And then as they grow, they can split those duties and hire more people. Once you're at a capacity where you have the jobs, that's just a little bit too much for one person's plate. That's when you really need those positions to be separate. And that's what I've seen, and 100% my opinion. But
yeah, no, I think you actually point out some really great points. Now, and the reason, I'll tell you why I asked, because the mechanical contractor I used to work with way back in the day, I think you nailed it, right? It was a matter of how much volume the company was bringing through, right, in terms of revenue. I was with the company for 17 years. In those first few years, granted, they were a big company, but the business unit was growing in San Antonio. So it was a smaller business in the local market. Anyways, project managers were also they would estimate the projects that they would get. And unfortunately, it wasn't like you described where they did the estimation, so they understood the project. It was more that they were so infatuated and convinced that their estimate was right, that they weren't willing to understand what was happening in the field in terms of installation and code and all these. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And those are things, I think people sometimes underestimate how important it is for many what are called office positions to understand what happens in the field. How does that pipe go in the ground?
Yes.
What is the process? What does everyone on that crew have to do in order to make it happen? And, what are the ways those processes can be improved? And what are the things that can go wrong in that ditch that an estimator who, went and worked in an office his whole life and never saw the field has no idea to anticipate.
Right. Yeah, that was one big thing, I think. And also, they were heavily incentivized based on financial performance of the project, which I think is a great thing. It, depending on where you're at, could take some tweaking and adjustments. But again, what I got to see, and this is really, I think, a function of leadership, is what I saw was these estimators / project managers pursuing and selling work that was garbage, like with garbage clients, like just to get their revenue target for the year or whatever it was. I'm like, man, this is abusive. These people, we don't need to be working with these people. They're horrible. We're never going to make money with them. But they were hitting their revenue goal, right? So it was, again, I think the incentive structure benefited them to take on more work because their incentive was based on hitting their annual revenue target. It wasn't connected to project performance.
Right.
And so when project performance started suffering, well, it was the field's fault, right? And so, does that make sense?
It does. And the phrase that comes to mind, and I cannot remember where we first heard this, but we have picked it up and used it. It was from a supervisor at one of Jake's old positions. You can't eat revenue.
Right. You can only eat margin, baby. You got to make that money. Revenue don't do nothing.
Yes.
Eventually, we got a different leader came in and switched it up. Estimating department, project managers, managed projects. And man, we started performing. We got better client. It was a whole like transformation. I don't know if that happens everywhere. Maybe a big part of it was a transitional thing. We're like here where we could do that. And then we started getting enough work where we couldn't do that anymore. And I also, again, I think it was the incentive structure that lent itself to making short-sighted decisions that didn't benefit the whole company. It was just one department. So there's some pointers there for you folks out there. You're all are traveling. You've been in South America, what, a year now?
Pretty close. I think at the end of this month, it'll be 9 months.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you're still getting business. How does that work? What's the cheat code for that? Because I know people are saying like, how do y'all do that? That's awesome.
I wish there was a cheat code. There's not. We were incredibly fortunate from the beginning because Jake had been in the industry for so long and was involved in organizations and knew a lot of people. When we were thinking of starting the business, there were just a few phone calls that we made and said, listen, well, technically Jake made them, and said, we're thinking about doing this. Do you think it's going to fly? And everybody said, oh my gosh, that's so needed. Like, please do it. And so by the time we started the company, we already had 2 clients.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. And we've gathered some more as we've gone. And of course, the way we work is we don't ever anticipate that we're going to have the same clients forever because we're there to help. We're not necessarily there to be a permanent situation. It's like we come in and help you get where you need to be, and then you can make a hire, and then you don't necessarily need us anymore. So it's really so far been mostly word of mouth. We've had some people find us through our website, through LinkedIn, different things like that. And I'll be honest, you've probably noticed LinkedIn has not been something I've been able to be as active on lately as usual. And I feel terrible about it, but it's been busy and we've had a lot going on, both personally and professionally. So hopefully come August, I'm going to get back in there and get back in because I miss the community so much. I hate that I've been kind of out of it. But yeah, it's really just been very organic. And there's no cheat code. You just gotta talk to people. And for us, I think we're a little different. There's so many estimating companies out there who you speak to one person who, like, you sign the contract with. They tell you about the services you say, okay, cool, sounds great. And you sign your contract. Well, then you're communicating with someone else about everything else, and then they're passing it to someone else. And those people who they're passing that bid to may or may not be truly qualified to handle it, but you have no way of knowing. And I think one of the selling points for us is it's just us. Like Jake is the one who's going to do your estimate. You are going to have access to him and he's going to be asking you questions. The way we say it is we work with our clients. Like, we really do get to know the people we deal with at our clients. We talk to them all the time. And we learn, we use their software, we use their processes. We don't force, like, we don't say, oh, we use this software and that's what you're going to get. It's like, no, what do you use? Help us understand your process. And so it's a little bit different than some of the estimating services we're familiar with out there. And I think that helps a little bit too, because we just kind of talk to people.
It's a personal touch, right? I mean, there's tremendous, it's funny because you've probably done this too, but I'm incessantly consuming content via audiobooks or YouTube around entrepreneurship, starting businesses, right? All of it, because there's just so damn much. I mean, yes, estimating's a heavy load, and so is everything else. And you're doing everything else, right? And so, you said it wasn't a cheat code.
No.
But I think it's absolutely a cheat code because it's something that I missed. And it's so obvious. Call the people you know and tell them you're thinking of starting a business. Like, I swear, you said it, right? Jake called a couple people who know. They said, oh, and they're customers now. They're like, yes, that's a great idea. Let me know when you start it, because I'm going to have some help. Similar for me. I didn't do that until like after the first year. Like, it didn't occur to me, because I'm posting on LinkedIn and different things. And I've been fortunate. I've had amazing clients, and they're almost always long-term relationships. But I had personal friends in the industry that didn't know. They either didn't know I started a business, or they didn't know what my business was.
Oh, wow.
And that's my fault, right? That's my fault for not calling them and telling them, like, hey, man, this is what I do. I swear there's still some people that think I'm like, the podcast is sponsored and I got all this money coming in from brand deal. Like, no, this is not a sponsored podcast, bro. Like, I do consulting. I help people improve work in the field. Anyways, the cheat code's is calling people, like anybody that you've worked with. I'm saying this for the L&M family member out there. Anyone that you've worked with in the past 5 years, if you're thinking about starting a business or you already have started a business, call all of them and let them know what you're doing, because they want to see you win. They're likely to support you and refer you, and they may even hire you.
Yeah. And we didn't expect any of them to necessarily become clients. It was literally, if I'm being 100% honest, I'd been pushing for us to do this for a while. It was not a new idea for me.
Yeah.
And Jake kept saying, oh, no, for various different reasons. And so when we finally really sat down and had the conversation and we're like, listen, here's everything. This is why we really need to consider this now. He was like, I don't know. Let me make a couple of calls to people and just see if they think that idea would even fly. So it wasn't even, hey, we're starting a business. It was, hey, we're thinking about this and I just don't know. Can you tell me if you think this would be a marketable service? So it was more like market research and feasibility research than even just calling and saying, hey, like whatever. So we made he made those phone calls with us not having any expectations other than them saying, oh yeah, I think that would be a really good service. I could understand people needing that, or, ooh, I don't know that anybody'd hire you for that. So yeah, very unexpected that we ended up with clients out of it.
Okay. So yeah. I'm saying, like, I remember the first breakfast, like I knew, because me, I did immense amounts of research and studying before I started my business. Wink. I didn't. I just said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to figure out how to do business. That's what I did. And I had breakfast with people that I work with. They're friends, but I used to work with them. And we're having breakfast, kind of catching up. They're like, man, it's awesome. And they're telling me about, like, we've got a leadership retreat coming up in Kerrville.
Oh.
No. I'm sorry. In Fredericksburg. This was 3.5 years ago. And what we're looking for is somebody to, like, facilitate the retreat, but somebody that really knows us, that can, like, call us on our BS and kind of give us some guidance, not just like facilitate. And I'm like, man, dude, that's an interesting combination. I don't know anybody that could do that, or they would even be willing to go to Fredericksburg. It was at a winery, right? And the one guy says, you don't even want you to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Like, that's like, so again, it's like this thing that has to happen in your brain to, like, wait a minute, you got to let people know when people want to work with you, especially if they worked with you in the past, because they understand the depth of quality that you can provide. And they'll tell you, no, I don't want your stuff because I don't like you. Or like, oh my gosh, let me know. I've had people tell me, like, I know we're going to bring you in to do something. Right now is not the right time, but we're going to work with you in the field. Like, okay, cool, man. Just let's work it out. We'll make it happen. but you got to let them know, bottom line.
Yes.
Now, you said that you saw this path a long time ago. And it took some convincing for our brother Jake. What was it that you saw that made, like, you knew, like, we need to explore this idea? What were the things that were calling to you about starting this business?
Ooh, so many. And I think this kind of gets back to where we started with the burnout situation and the stress. Almost every job that Jake had in estimating, there was burnout and stress within the department, whether it was one person or whether it was multiple people. And there were heavy traffic times when they could really use an extra hand. They just didn't need it year round. And so many
Mm.
estimators were working 50, 60 plus hours a week, working weekends. And
Oh, yeah,
I told them,
yeah,
I was like, there has to be somebody out there that can come in and take some of this off of you guys when there's just too much for the team. Like, there has to be a solution for this. And he was like, there's just really not. And of course, there were some estimating consultants out there then. And, I'm not one to disparage anyone. I just know that I heard that the companies that tried them did not have good experiences. The estimates weren't necessarily
yeah,
accurate. So the only exposure that we'd really had to the potential of this service were people that weren't necessarily doing a good job. And I don't even know company names. I just know people would say, oh, we tried that. It was a horrible experience. And so I can understand Jake's skepticism, but I just kept saying, like, there's got to be a better way. Like, is there a way to hire a part-time estimator? Or, you know, again, that whole bring them in during a heavy work. I just kept seeing all these times where it's like they just need an extra hand and they don't have access to it because it's not something they need full time yet. And it just
yeah.
kind of stuck in my head thinking, and, I'm me, me. I'm sitting here thinking about like these people who, what are they missing in their kids' lives because they're having to work on a Saturday morning when their
Well,
kids out doing activities or their children are young, or, not necessarily just the kids, but like, what are these people missing in their personal lives because their company doesn't have someone to help take the load when it's necessary? And
mm,
what's that doing to
mhm.
their mental health long term? And the other thing that I noticed is there's a decent amount of turnover because when you
Ah,
have this situation and people get burned out and they're overworked, they're burned out, they can't handle the mental load anymore. At some point, they're going to throw their hands up and say, I can't do this anymore. I've got to stop. And so then you have the turnover situation. It's like, oh my gosh, if they could just bring somebody in for when they needed them, they would be able to keep the experience they have instead of consistently having to hire new
yes.
people and retrain them. And that person has to learn the company. Whereas if they could do this one thing to help out, they would be able to keep these employees long term and they would spend less money on hiring and training. And so again, it's like one of those holistic, it benefits everyone if you can just find
Right.
someone that's trustworthy that will do a good job.
Yeah. Oh my good. I love it because it was obvious to you. And that's the beautiful thing, right? So maybe for the L&M family members out there, what's obvious to you is not obvious to everyone, right? Like you're saying, like, wait a minute, my husband's working his butt off and he's miserable. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe exaggerating, right? Like 50, 60, like honestly, 50 or 60 hours of work to me, that's easy. But like, my Lord, what do you mean less than 60 hours? What's wrong with you? But 50 or 60 hours today running my own business, piece of cake. I'm loving it. I'm having fun. I've worked 50 to 60, 70, 80 hours a week under extreme stress and under pressure with no resources in sight to alleviate any of that pressure. That's a different deal, even 40 hours of that. And so like what you're describing is you're watching Jake there, working himself to the bone, and he's a high performer and he has high expectations of himself. And so he puts more in than maybe the normal person would or the average person would. And so that strain and pressure takes out the energy, like takes life away from him. Because by the time he gets home, not just Jake, but people in general, by the time they get home, they got nothing left. And their significant other, their kids, their pets, the plants, all the things are neglected. And so you're 100% right. And it was obvious to you, like, man, if you just had this little resource that could come in and take off some of that pressure so that those people, maybe they still work 50 hours, but they're not under crisis mode every minute of every day, their quality of life shoots up.
Yes.
And so again, I'm a 50, 60, 70 hour guy, but it's different doing it, knowing that I can design my life in such a way to where it's not this high pressure situation. It's more of, there's so much opportunity to serve other people. I'm going to have to, like not watch whatever, right? There's things that I'm willing to sacrifice so that I can get my brain focused and do the thinking that's necessary to deliver the service.
Well, and the other thing about you and what you do for a living that I think people who hear you say, I work 60 plus hours a week, and they're like, oh my God, Jesse, stop. Part of your job, like we met up with you in San Antonio. That was part of your job. You went out and did the conference with Megan 2 years in a row. And you go out and I see you posting pictures of all of these connections that you're making, not only through the podcast, but in real life with people. And so you're not sitting in an office in front of a computer, burning through numbers your entire day. You're out, you're, hiking with potential clients. You're flying somewhere to do a conference and meet people. There's an aspect of life that we've started to miss. And I think the pandemic kind of put it on hyperdrive because we were forced to interact virtually. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, we all need social connection. And I'm not going to ever disparage good relationships between coworkers. That's an incredible thing. But you also need social time outside of work.
Yes. No, you nailed it. Because part of my work is button pushing, right? It's not a lot. Like it's a small, like I don't have to do timesheets or expense reports where like, that's it. Anybody that wants to recruit me to work for you full time, as long as I don't have to do timesheets and expense reports, you got me. But nobody's got that situation. So we keep the consulting deal going on. Part of my work, I got to do invoices. It's that time of the month that I got to, and I don't really like it, but it's part of the work. I got to respond to emails. I'm not great at it. Actually, I'm horrible at it, but I got to do that part of the work. Part of it is doing my training, consulting, facilitation. I love that part because it's high human engagement, human interaction. Absolutely love that part. Yeah, traveling around and connecting with people and building relationships. Like, I think the magical thing is, because it's my business, I get to pick who the hell I want to give attention and energy to. Whereas, the things that I've learned in the 3.5 years of running my business, I look back and I'm like, man, I was a good employee, but I was a pretty mediocre employee, because what I understand now in terms of like business development and marketing, branding and messaging and like all of that, had I known that when I was an employee, I would have been a freaking outstanding employee. But I would have to apply those skills and knowledge to people that I don't necessarily appreciate or like. And so that's the difference. There's very few things that I don't enjoy doing, or more accurately, there are very few people that I interact with that I don't like from a business perspective or delivery of service, that I wouldn't hang out with at the ballpark or go, like you said, or go hiking with them or, barbecue with them. There's very few people, when I had a real job, it was like, oh man, I hate all of these people, but I got to go do the thing. which is a totally different experience, which, like you said, like the hours, it's fun for me. And the work that I get to do, I believe, is precisely the work I was designed to do in terms of helping people have awakenings and shift and see things differently so that they're having more fun at work. And then, like you, improving their quality of life, like full picture, not just their performance at their
Right.
job, which is not the same as the jobs that I've had before. Like I had amazing jobs, but it was like 20% amazing, 80% a job. Whereas now I have like 80% amazing, 20% job, you know? Anyways, and one point I want to make is that personal touch that you and Jake deliver, because I would say that's the unique thing, right? There's so much content out there about scaling and operationalizing and optimizing, right? Like all of these things, which I agree could be valuable if you want to build a business that you want to resell or like that you want to exit out of or that you want to scale massively. But I don't think that's the kind of business you all want to build.
No, sir.
You like the personal, the connection, the exchange of not just service, but generosity in service. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the reasons people have said, oh, when are you going to hire? And when are you going to do this? We're like, we're not, we're it. Like, this is it. Because A, we're really picky. I mean, like really picky. And you nailed it earlier. Jake puts incredibly high expectations on himself, and he wants to deliver the best product he's capable of delivering. And I'm very much the same. And we genuinely become invested in the success of our clients. And that matters a lot to us. And so we don't ever want to bring someone in and have them working with our clients and them not be just as invested as we are. Because, like you say, we really are in it for the service, because the whole point was, oh my gosh, we can help improve people's lives. And maybe if we're lucky, we can help improve the industry. And sort of, very small ways, one company at a time, if we can offer some sort of organizational help that allows this company to streamline and spend, 20 minutes less on each bid. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it can be huge. And that's what we're
compounding
that's
gain.
what we're after.
Compounding gain. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love it. And I'm going to say this, like what it's kind of, I have a love-hate relationship with it is I too am here to transform the industry, right? I'm going to leave this thing better than I found it. Now I'm limited in terms of like just being a human. I got to sleep and all these things. And so that means the number of people that I will be able to touch directly is limited. But I also know that when I impact people the way I know I can, that it activates them to do the same for the people in their space. And so the love-hate thing for me is I love knowing that when I serve somebody to the degree that I can, that it's going to activate them and they're going to serve others. I love knowing that. And those others are going to serve others, right? Those ripples. What I hate is that I can't see all of it. I want to see all of it. I want to see everybody. What do you think about that?
I understand that. I think it's hard. It's funny you bring up ripples. That has been sort of a recurring theme throughout my adult life, and people that I have found as mentors, or even some of my bosses. One of my bosses, I worked at a law firm for a while. She was one of the most incredible human beings I've ever met in my life. And she did very similar to you, to me, to Jake. She did everything for who it could help. And she talked about the ripples. And she actually once talked about how you don't always get to see it, but you know it's there. And I agree, like not being able to see it is sometimes difficult. And I think the reason is, especially in our industry, we know some of the problems. And we could get into so many of them. And I don't necessarily mean just organizational problems. Like, look at the mental health crisis that the construction industry is dealing with right now. There is a real human cost to the inefficiencies in our industry. And it's hard to know that ripple is out there, but you don't have a face to know that this person benefited from something that you initiated however many steps ago. We only get to see, the immediate people that we can see. And that's hard sometimes, but I genuinely believe that in the next 10 years, we will be able to see what the ripples of all of us who have these intentions. Because again, this community that especially you've built on LinkedIn that I've been fortunate to be accepted into, everybody is trying to better the industry and the world. And when you start seeing that community grow, I can't believe that in 10 years we won't see those ripples.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you 100%. Like, they're happening and they get bigger, and I just want to see all of them, Heather. Damn it. Oh my goodness. Okay. I feel a little cheated because you already know what the Grand Slam question is.
Yeah, but you know what's great?
But
I'm at that age in my life where I can't always remember what I said last week.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Well, let's give it a shot here. So you started a whole business, not only started a business, but transformed your life, sold everything. Y'all are out and about, traveling the world, experiencing new cultures, committed to improving the quality of life for people and transforming the industry. And that's not to say that you haven't already had major impact in the people that you've touched. I'm one of them. I know you have. And so my question to you is, what is the promise you are intended to be?
Oh, the promise I'm intended to be. I really did forget and have not even thought about this. I think I would have to say the promise that I'm intended to be is to do as much work on myself, push my comfort zone, push my growth edges, and improve myself and be the best me I can be so that I can help others in better and different ways the more I grow.
Oh, I second that, sister, right? You heard me at the beginning say selfish servant. I believe I've discovered, it's not a belief. I know the more I challenge myself and grow and learn and all of these things, which seems like me focused, it helps me serve better in deeper ways. And so, type A, I think, what else did you use? Another descriptive
recovering
term
perfectionist, tightly wound.
Yeah, all of those things. But you're out there bouncing around the world, challenging, expanding that comfort zone. So there's no doubt that you're absolutely going to be deeper, more equipped to serve other people and touch them in the way that you've touched me, Miss Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
did you have fun?
Oh my gosh, I had a blast. And I want to tell you the feeling is mutual because the thing that you said earlier, and it's so funny that I know you say it all the time, but what's obvious to you is not obvious to everyone. You told me that the first time we met in person, and I will not ever forget that because the conversation we had was, I was like, well, yeah, but everybody. And you're like, no, not everybody. And that made an impact.
No.
And that has been part of one of the things that I chew on in a way to, help me be better. I literally say, all right, now is this really obvious to everybody, or am I seeing something they don't?
Thank you for sticking it out all the way to the end. I know you got a whole lot of stuff going on. And in appreciation for the gift of time that you have given this episode, I want to offer you a free PDF of my book, Becoming the Promise You're Intended to Be. The link for that bad boy is down in the show notes. Hit it. You don't even have to give me your email address. There's a link in there. You just click that button and you can download the PDF. And if you share it with somebody that you know who might feel stuck or be caught up in self-destructive behaviors, that would be the ultimate. You sharing that increases the likelihood that it's going to help one more person. And if it does help one more person, then you're contributing to me becoming the promise I am intended to be. Be kind to yourself, be cool, and we'll talk at you next time. Thank you for sticking it out all the way to the end. I know you got a whole lot of stuff going on. And in appreciation for the gift of time that you have given this episode, I want to offer you a free PDF of my book, Becoming the Promise You're Intended to Be. The link for that bad boy is down in the show notes. Hit it. You don't even have to give me your email address. There's a link in there. You just click that button and you can download the PDF. And if you share it with somebody that you know who might feel stuck or be caught up in self-destructive behaviors, that would be the ultimate. You sharing that increases the likelihood that it's going to help one more person. And if it does help one more person, then you're contributing to me becoming the promise I am intended to be. Be kind to yourself, be cool, and we'll talk at you next time. Peace!